Hi, I'm Dave, welcome to the channel and welcome to another video where we mess about with a slot car. Now, I did mention in my recent video and videos about the Carrera buses that the panel van that they've done, which is the Martini one, is incorrect in that they've just put obscured glass in and these panels are not flush. And I showed you a picture of my panel van where the panels are flush, and I said I needed to right those wrongs, and that's what we're going to do in today's video, because we're going to turn this one into my one. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I've got some little bits of 3D printed plastic here. Now, I could have spent ages cutting out and shaping and curving ever so slightly, because these are curved bits of plastic, or I could have just 3D printed some out fairly quickly, so I did that and then sanded the edges. It was a lot easier. So these will fit in here, like this and like this. And I've got a pair for the other side as well. So the plan here is to ditch the glass, strip the paint off, glue these in, a little bit of filler, smooth them out, sand them off so they're proper flush, like they should be, and then we'll go from there. A few other bits and pieces I might do along the way. Obviously these wheels are not correct to my bus at all, so there's motorbike guy going past again, bless him. So I've got some other wheels. These are PCS Classic Thins. They do a 16-inch and a 14-inch wheel. These are the 16-inch. And they've got some cross spokes in them. They're not the correct cross spokes, but I'm going to paint these black in here and see if they match my bus well enough at this scale. And if they don't, we might have to try something else, but I'm kind of hopeful. So there's a selection of things we need to do while we're going along. Now, before we do any of that, of course, we need to get this thing apart. Now, I have been in here and lowered this bus before, so those little cups on the ends of the body mount supports I have smoothed off flat and lowered as far as I think I can. And with the body, I've attacked a lot of this with the Dremel to make room for the engine to poke, the motor to poke through here, and a bit of clearance tubbing the wheel arches just to get the front wheels to clear. Now, most of the reason this bus isn't any lower than it is, and it does need to go lower still, is that this and this all interfere with each other. Now, because I'm going to make a panel van, I don't need this section in the middle at all. So I think we can chop all of this out, make the van quite a lot lighter, and get the body down a little bit lower over this chassis. Because I'm a Volkswagen guy, we like to lower things. It's just how it is. So we'll take some of this out of here. And now these seats will just pop out. We're not going to need those anyway, because it's a panel van. And yes, I think we'll just lose a very large chunk of this out of here. And I might see if I can skim even more out of these seats and under here, and at least make it look like there's still a seat, even if, you know, I could probably win myself another 3 or 4 millimeters of lowering, which is the name of the game. So we'll put all that lot to one side. And the next thing to do is get all of these pieces out of here that will come out. A lot of them are melted in. Might be able to push some of them out with a screwdriver. Might be able to cut some of them out with a scalpel. And anything that's very persistent, I shall get the soldering iron and melt the backs off. But we'll see how we go. So join me at the point that I finally managed to get this piece of glass out of this bus roof. It is incredibly difficult. These 4 posts are quite long. You have to pull this out almost exactly square. Otherwise, it's not coming and it's a fight. And the funny thing with the windscreen wipers on it, does nothing other than just get in the way. So I'm glad that's done and I haven't broken anything in the process. Obviously, I'm probably just going to nip this across here and here and probably across here at the back and lose all of this because I just don't need it. And, you know, there's a lot of weight in here as well. If we can lower the weight inside the shell as well as lower the shell, we might be able to get this thing to run a decent lap without a magnet on it. You never know your luck. So this is now going to go for a swim in the isopropyl alcohol, and then a bit of a brush with the toothbrush, and hopefully all the paint will come off it fairly easily. Okay, so the paint stripping went pretty well. It didn't take that long. It was 24 hours, but then it did all just wipe off, much like the paint in the Scalextric Ford Escort Barry Lee Hot Rod. I'm very impressed. It's only Pioneer I have real trouble getting the paint off. I don't know what they use for their paint, but it must be different. So now this is, because it was a red bus, they've made it out of red plastic. I mean, in an ideal world, I suppose I'd be tearing all the Martini buses apart because they must be made out of white plastic and it would make life a lot easier. Now, because it is such a strong colour of plastic, before I put white primer on it, first of all, I'm going to stick some grey etch primer on it. Now, not a lot, but just a little. Just to cover it. It bonds better to the plastic and then to the paint that goes on top of the etch primer after that. It's going to be a better finish. So I'm going to put some of that on first as etch, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'll put a little coat of white primer over it before we start sticking these window panels in that I was talking about previously. So while the paint's drying, I might as well attack this glass. There's far too much of this, and I do only need, it's difficult to show you something transparent on a camera, but I do only need this back piece and the cab section. So I'm going to go cut through there and through there. And then on the back, I think there's a hole there, so I shall cut from there to that hole. I might go across there actually, and across there. So just to make sure I don't scratch the bit I want to keep, I should just pop on a bit of masking tape. Shows me what line to follow as well. About like that, I reckon. Excellent. And now it's Dremel time. And so that bit is all scrap and we don't need it. So apologies for the rude interruption of the phone there, but this is where we ended up. A back screen, which will still fit in there. And a front screen, which will still fit in there. And I've got rid of all of this extra weight that we don't need. The body is back from initial paint. So the grey's on there and the white is just a thin layer over the top. Just so I can see what I'm doing. It's more as a guide coat than anything. And now I need to turn this into a panel van. Now I did mention before that I 3D printed out some little pieces to fit in here. Now I don't know if you can see or not, they have a slight curve to them to match this slight curve that's on here. And when I print them out, I printed them out just with square edges, roughly the right size. This one has a slight incline on it because this rear window has a slight incline on it, but the other one is rectangular. And then I just sanded them down with a bit of sandpaper just to put the radiuses on the corners. It was easier. I could have spent ages messing about printing out hundreds of different ones, and really what I needed is something the right curve and roughly the right size. So I sanded these down, and these will now all fit quite snugly into all of these little apertures. And this is quite nice because my own T2b, when I bought it, somebody had cut some windows into it, but it started life as a panel van. And then I paid somebody to do exactly this job and turn it back into the panel van that it was when it left the factory, because, well, I kind of like panel vans. So that one will need a little bit more of a fettle in that top corner. That one will go in there. That's nice. And then once we've done that, I'll stick them all in place. I'll probably hold them in place with a little bit of masking tape. And then I'll glue them from the inside with some thick super glue just to get them held straight. Then I'll use some of this 1K fine surface filler that I used when I did the Barry Lee hot rod, just to smooth this off. Bit of sandpaper just to get it all nice and flat. And then I can put another base coat of white primer over the top, another little sand, and we should be ready for masking up and applying the final coat, which will be nice and easy on this because it's just going to be two colours. There's the green up to here, and then there's a creamy colour across the roof, which is a lot easier than everything else I've ever painted. So I'm going to quite enjoy this. So that's where we're going next with all of this. So after 3 rounds of fill, sand and paint, fill, sand and paint, fill, sand and paint, I have now reached a point where I am happy that you can't see any joins and all the edges are correct. And it's profiled nicely, so it's as per a factory panel van. So that's good. Now, I'm touching this at the moment, that's fine. The paint is dry enough to touch, and it's dry enough for me to muck about with here. But I'm not going to paint it properly yet because it's not that dry. This is one of these things where patience is the key, and if you don't, you'll ruin all the paint. It's not dry enough to apply masking tape, because when you peel it off, the paint will come off. So it needs to wait a bit longer. In the meantime, there are other jobs to be done. So, what I need to do is change the wheels. Now these wheels are slightly smaller, which is nice, because that will lower the van, the chassis of the van, to the track, and there is a little bit of room under there. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there is. However, if these wheels do lower it a little bit too far and the belly of the chassis is rubbing on the ground, then I have got some staff slots, offset bearings, which I can put in, and although I'll be making the wheels smaller, I then want to raise the axle back up to take that slack back up and recreate the height. I can clamshell this into here as far as I need to. Let me just... Oh, Carrera, why don't you glue your lights in like Scale Electric do? Right. So in terms of lowering the bus, or lowering the bus by look at least, this would clamshell in, like, I mean, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? But you'd have to take all of the chassis out, all of the body out, all the interior out. It would look lovely, but my van isn't that low. My van is about, I would say, about there. So I really want the bottom edge of this body to line up with that ridge that's along the chassis here. If I can get to that point, I think I'll be happy. So there's a lot of jiggery pokery to do, but we need to bring the body down a little bit further. And actually, as you saw, this will fit right inside there. The thing that's stopping it getting any lower at the moment is the lights. So I need to notch this bodywork here and into this bit of dashboard just to make room for these circuit boards. And I need to do something at the back similarly. And I could really do with just taking this whole floor out of here so that it doesn't foul on any of the motor or the chip or anything. So again, that's going to be Dremel time, and then we'll see just how low we can get this without having to take any more out of it. I'm quite hopeful, it has to be said. So I shall drop that down, then we'll look at the wheels and the bearings and the axles if we need to get a bit of ground clearance for the chassis later on. So there will now be quite a lot of fiddling. I might show you some of it, probably do a bit of dremeling, bit of tinkering, but I'll probably do it all in fast forward because I'll just fiddle about. If I get a problem, I'll talk about it. But otherwise, hopefully, there'll be fast forward and then I'll have something that's lower and I can tell you exactly what I did. I like that sort of plan. So, having got fairly heavy-handed with the Dremel there and removed another big chunk of weight from further up in this slot car, so that's great. Along with this bit, we are saving quite a lot of weight and lowering the centre of gravity quite a lot. So, this now sits with its headlights clearanced, and I've got a little bit more room for play if I need it. I've done the same at the back, so this body can sit down, and I mean I could have taken less off, but I wanted to give myself room in case I wanted to lower it even further. I don't think I do. And obviously I've taken all of the middle out, so there's a lot more room in here now, and everything sits down nice and flush. So when I look at this from side on, it's a bit close here, but the wheels do still turn, and I'm putting slightly smaller diameter wheels on it anyway. So that will be okay, I think. And then when I put the body back on as well, and I have this sitting on here like this. Now, I think with the correct wheels on it, that is going to sit really rather quite like my van does, which is, after all, the object of the exercise. Might have to play about with the axles a little bit and the heights, as I say, but I'll see how we go. What I'm also going to do is plop a bit of black paint on these wheels, just to see if that's going to work for me or if I need to replace the centres. So onwards and upwards. So after quite a bit of fettling, I have reached this stage. Now, if you are even remotely passionate about modifying Volkswagens and things, this stance should please you greatly, because it is really quite low now. And I managed to do it just with bolt-in bits. I'll show you how. So if I just take the body off, because we don't need it to be there now. These are, of course, these standard 16-inch classic wheels from Pendle. Now, the thing with these is they come as offset pairs of tyres. So the rear ones have a much higher tyre wall than the front ones, which Volkswagen modifiers tend to like anyway. And that means that you need to kind of play about with the axles. This wheel is smaller than the original, and this one's about the same size. So using the Staff Slots Staffs 09 1mm offset bearings, 2 pairs of, on the rear, if I take this axle out of here. So on the rear you can see I've put the hole at the top, and here I put the hole at the bottom. So the axle is lower for the smaller wheel, which actually pushes it that way. And then the axle is, this is lowering and this is raising effectively, but I'm taking up the difference with the tyre size. So that, all as a set of geometry, just works out. These are standard. I've put some 54mm slotted axles in. I bought 54mm because they're big enough for pretty much everything and you can cut them down. And for some reason, those ones are a lot cheaper than all the others. So why not? And I've worked out that using a small and a large Pioneer Legends white kit robbed from set of axle spacers, if I put the large one on the rear there, and the front has a small one on it. Once the body is on, oh, and I had to clearance out inside these wheel arches a little bit. Don't know if you can see that. This is very thick plastic and the wheels were rubbing slightly, so Dremel to that as well a little bit, but that's good. This will now fit, apart from this wonky light, into there. And this sits accordingly, which is great. So in order to make sure I've cut the axles to the right size, what I need to do is put the same amount of spacers on this side, and then put these wheels back on. And then all I have to do is measure that distance and that distance
and cut that much off the axle and they'll fit. So I shall do that using the Rob Bushell Swift Slots pseudo lathe method of putting the axle in a drill, turning it and using the Dremel to cut the end of it off. And then we'll come back and hopefully this can sit together and run, and then all we need to do is paint it and put it back together. So with all of this complete now, oh, there we are, full setup. All these wheels are spinning nice and freely. Everything is set just as I'd like it on the setup plate. There we are. And so we can move to the thorny subject of masking this up for paint, because this primer is now hard enough. It will take the masking tape. So it's going to be quite an easy mask and paint, this one, for me, because I'm only doing two colours, one all the way around and one on the roof. So I'm going to start with the dark colour. I'll do the roof afterwards. So I just need to run some masking tape around here and then paint the rest. Just, he says. Right, here we go. So 2 coats of green later, just to make sure the colour was even all over. And this is where we're at. It's time to unpeel the roof. And I'm pretty pleased with that. I am now going to go around and just spray the roof, because this is still just primer. I will spray it with a cream colour, just slightly off white. And then, I mean, I'm getting excited about this because it's my van, but this is coming together quite nicely now. I am very happy indeed. Right, onwards. Now, because obviously I've just painted this, yet again, I shall say it because it's a mantra we should all repeat. I'm not going to mask this up just yet because this paint isn't dry enough to take masking tape. What I'm going to do is get on with some of the other little bits, including bumpers. Now, excuse the piece of blue roll, but I kind of need blue roll for this, for enough contrast for you to be able to see what's really going on. This is the front bumper, and the rear bumper that Carrera made. And I have to say, they're rubbish. Given that Carrera is an Austro-German company, they seem to have got possibly the only person in Austria who's never seen a Volkswagen to design the bumpers, because this is, I don't know where this idea came from. So having a 3D printer and knowing what my Volkswagens look like, I made a better bumper. So this is why I kind of needed that blue roll, because white doesn't work and nor does black for this. But so there we are. As you can see, they are a completely different length, a completely different width, and the little dots, which are where the bolts go through the bumper fixings to the bumper mounts, are in a completely different place. And it has an outstand from the bodywork, because a late bay has like a crumple zone behind the bumper, and it makes the bumper stick out a bit. So that's the front, which is fairly different from the rear. The rear, I don't know what all this is about. These wrap around the back of this bus like they don't do that. That's not right. They should be that shape. Again, kind of drastically different. Not too different that way around. And because my van has a tow bar, which itself is on a bracket which stands the bumper off from the back of the van a little bit extra, I've done exactly that and put myself a tow bar on as well. So when I put these on the van, now that looks more like a Volkswagen. The other one looked a bit like a Volkswagen. I mean, it's a huge difference, look. And the same with the front. So I'm getting there with those. I need to paint these black while the rest of this paint is just curing off a little bit more. And on top of that, because it's my van, this is the rear window. Now my van has what we call jail bars, which are cargo bars that go in the back, so that if you've got stuff in the back of your van and it slides about, it crashes into the bars and doesn't go through the glass. So I've made a set of those, and I shall probably chrome those up with my new Fun Seals chrome pens, because I am loving those. Spray these black. I need to spray the mirrors black wherever they've gone. I'm sure they're in here somewhere. There's one. There's the other one. And I do need to think about the exhaust, because this ain't right. But maybe later for that one. So I'm going to spray these bits up. Primer first, then black, or silver pen in this case. And then I shall go back to masking this round, putting a nice piece of cream paint on the top. And then this is going to need a coat of clear just to seal it all in before we put everything back together. So friends, time has passed, and as you can see, I have a nice cream roof and it's nice and glossy. And I've been painting a few other things as well. So the wipers are now black. I've silver penned up my jail bars so they can go in my back window. Mirrors are black with a bit of silver pen mirror on the other side. I did round the edges of the headlight rims black because my van is, rather than the silver that was painted on them before. So that should help out. And I smoked the rear lights on my van, so I've smoked the rear lights on this van as well. Bumpers are black. And I created myself a little single quiet pack. They're not very quiet pack exhaust, which, as you see, I've put some quite long legs on here. Now this is because it fits into these two holes here, but because I've lowered the body, I've kind of put this so that I can set it where I need to before I glue it in, and it will come underneath the bumper, and so on. One other thing that I've done is I've converted him to right-hand drive. I simply just snapped all the feet off the bottoms of all of the seats, swapped them over. Yeah, the dashboard's the wrong way round, but yeah, doesn't really matter. And there's a guy, and I put a little bit of black paint round so that he's got some slightly longer hair than he had before. And that's that. Now I'm going to enjoy myself, taking time, not worrying about a camera, and I'm going to assemble this van, and then I'll come back and show you it when it's all done. But forgive me, I'm just going to put all these bits together, and I'm going to do it on my own time. So I'll be back very shortly for you when this is all back together. So here we are. I took my time, savoured my moment building it. It was a pleasure. I'm only ever going to do this once, and it is my van, my most prized vehicle I've owned in my life, and the one I've owned for the longest. And it really is a miniature version of my van now. It's gone from being a T2b-ish shaped thing by Carrera to being a thing that looks like a late bay panel van. I'm putting a lot of that down to the front bumpers being right, because that kind of sets it off. Its face is right, the back end is right, and the wheels. I think the wheels are the right size. I think the ones that come from Carrera, I think the wheels are slightly too big. The tyres are way too big. They just don't sit right in the wheel arches. It's a little bit out of proportion. So putting these, you know, scale Pendle 16-inch wheels on makes it just look more real. I've always had this thing that wheels really do make or break any car of any size, and I think it kind of proves it. The little tailpipe on the back, I'm really pleased with that, and the jail bars in the rear window, coloured in with that silver pen, of course. I love it. I could stand here and talk about how brilliant I think this van is, and yeah, you may or may not like it. You may not have my taste in Volkswagen camper vans or panel vans, but it's mine and I love it. Right, let's take this for a few laps round Munden Park. Now I still can't get over how good it looks. Right, let's go for a spin. Well, I'm really impressed with that. I mean, bearing in mind it has no magnet in it. I've just put a little tiny bit of lead in it. All of that lowering and all of that taking the weight out the top of the vehicle where all that extra plastic was has made the world a difference. That's a nicely handling no mag Carrera bus that drifts a little bit if you want it to. So it goes as well as it looks. I really am getting better at this, you know. I really am. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch one of my videos. If you liked it, you will find a button specifically for that. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free and it really does help. And if you hit the bell, you'll get a notification the next time I post a video.